Fire me then. I have free speech. This is a public entity. You want to go down that road? Well, hey guys, July 18th, 2024, Richard with Kansas Freedom News. Now, many of you may not know, today was Robert Walker Jr.'s pretrial hearing. And you're going to find some very interesting things, some big fat lies that came out of Big Fat Jill's mouth that we are going to go over. So, let's get into it.
After a brief internet services interruption, the Walker matter resumes. Mr. Walker, Mr. House, Ms. Gillette appearing as before. Hopefully we won't have any more technological problems during this Zoom pretrial conference. All right. Currently before the court is a motion to dismiss counts 3 and 4 of the second amended complaint and information. What is the state's response to the motion to dismiss count 3, Ms. Gillette?
Your Honor, Deputy Bliss and Deputy Watts, what records have been provided to the defense?
Okay, that's not what that one is about.
Count 3 is battery on enforcement officer Amy Bliss. Count 4 is aggravated battery on law enforcement officer Eric Watts. The defense wants additional medical records on these two officers, but they have been leaking the medical records of the officers to media personas and press, violating their HIPAA rights and their privacy rights.
Now, right here, you see Jill making an accusation that Robert Walker Jr., or maybe his attorney, has released medical records to me, Mike with Lawrence Accountability, or Justin with the Rabble Rouser. And guys, I'm here to tell you that is not true. In fact, we have had zero contact with Robert Walker Jr. Zero contact with Robert up until just a few hours before this hearing. And the only contact I had with him was I added him as a friend because I heard he posted something. In order to see it, I had to have him as a friend. And then all it was the comment I made on that post that you might have made a typo. They didn't violate your Third Amendment because there's no troops quartered in your house. And he said, yes, it was a typo. Oops, my bad. Another mistake. That was the only contact I've had with Robert Walker Jr. up to this day. And it was only this day that contact was made. And that was only that discussion that was discussed. As for medical records, you guys can go back through all my videos. I'm sure you're going to see no medical records. I was never given any. So lie number 1 by Jill. Let's continue.
The state has motioned for a seal of confidentiality and an order for them to not disseminate any further records or for them to have to come and view them in person with the state.
Ms. Gillette, I want to go back to paragraph 2 of the motion to dismiss, which creates a totally separate and independent reason for dismissal of count 3. I'm not aware that the last charging document is the second amended complaint. Mr. House has raised an issue regarding essentially the severity level that that crime charges. And first of all, I wanted your response to that.
I believe it should be a misdemeanor. I think when it was amended that it got changed to felony and it should be misdemeanor.
Yeah, sure, Jill. If you say so. But I think that was kind of done on purpose. You was hoping to probably slip one on by there, wouldn't you? But you got caught.
All right. So, according to Mr. House, and I think it's an accurate statement, battery of a law enforcement officer is alleged in count 3 as a Class A misdemeanor, not a severity level 5 person felony. He moves for dismissal, but I think that at this juncture, the proper remedy is amendment of the complaint, an ordered amendment of the complaint to reflect that count 3, battery on a law enforcement officer involving Amy Bliss, is to be charged from this point forward as a Class A misdemeanor. The court will order amendment of the complaint accordingly.
Now, I want you guys to pay attention. Notice Jill's reaction and her body language whenever the judge kind of expresses disappointment and kind of, redirects her on some of her choices. You notice she never looks at the judge. She's always sideways, fiddling around. I wonder why that is. And I also want you guys to comment in the comment section. How often a seasonal attorney, as Jill claims to be, re-election, supposed to be pretty seasoned, pretty experienced. How often do these mistakes happen? I'm just curious. Somebody has to know. Put in the comment section, how often do these states' seasoned attorneys make mistakes on these charges? I'm kind of curious on that. Put it in the comment section if you know. Somebody should know.
And it would appear then that the state is conceding on this point. All right, then back to count 4 then, which is where Ms. Gillette's argument began. This court had ordered back in March for the state to disclose and turn over doctors' records on the alleged victim's back injuries, which apparently was the impetus for the amendment to a level 5 person felony. Yet Mr. House suggests that those records haven't been turned over. Is that correct, Mr. House?
Your Honor, that's right. As to records from the state of California, we addressed that in our motion for continuance and pointed out that we hadn't received those records. That was one of the reasons we were asking for continuance of the jury trial, so that we might have those records from California to have. We had an expert in Tulsa who was going to look at those and give us his opinion on the records. But I've talked with Ms. Gillette about it. I know she's had trouble getting those, but we still don't have them, and I don't think she has them.
I have, but
What? Okay.
Mr. Watts's medical records have been leaked to the public.
Okay. If he doesn't have them yet, how can he leak them?
Uh-oh, Jill. I think the judge just busted you on your lie. How is Robert Walker Jr., 1, supposed to release me any records when you haven't released them to him or his attorney? 2, I haven't had no contact with Robert Walker Jr. up until a few hours before this hearing that we're watching now. But you claim that it's in previous videos. No. No. The only medical records that we had is from your old squishy, your big old pal, old squishy Gardner, original video of the preliminary hearing. And your questioning Amy and Richard Eric Watts on their injuries is the only information we ever got of any injuries. We have no records. And I just happen to have some paper documents here that were shared to me. And they were not shared to me by Robert Walker Jr. Let me hold them up right here. They were not shared to me by Robert Walker Jr. Had zero contact with Robert Walker Jr. Jill, you lied to that judge. Lied to that judge, and it's now documented. Jill, we have zero medical records. The only information we had is from your own questioning and their own testimony from the preliminary hearing. Now, as for your other statements, which we'll get into later, on their personal information, do you know KSC Post is public record, Jill? For any and all officers of the law. You dang Skippy, we requested those records. Let's get back to this. Oh, and also, Your Honor, Judge David Rickey, I would be willing to come into your court and testify, if you need me to prove Jill's lied the entire time. I have copies, and I'll bring them with me. I'll bring all my computers and files and everything you need to prove I had no evidence or documents of any MRI, no knowledge of an MRI had even been done, and no medical records whatsoever. All I've got are what would be normally standard public records, is police reports and statements of witnesses. Oh, and public court records of charges being filed. And I did get copies of all the body cam footage and every footage that was released as discovery. That is the only files and documents that I ever received. Everything else I got off of the preliminary hearing from Jill's big old pal, old squishy Gardner guy.
Yeah.
They have had an MRI of Deputy Watts from the beginning of this case, and the defendant has shared all of his discovery.
Hey, Mr. Walker, I don't need your head shaking. Just let your attorney speak for you.
These records the MRI has been leaked along with other stuff to online media personas. The defendant has encouraged them to go out and find the videos of the court that are on YouTube, such as today, where they made a public announcement wanting everyone to watch and make comments on it. The live stream for today, it is running rampant with death threats against everyone. But more importantly, they have leaked information about Deputy Watts' history past. These media personas are trying to go into detail about anything from former Deputy Watts' history of his medical care, trying to obtain it, talk about it. The MRI is being discussed on public YouTube streaming by these media personas that have been leaked by the defendant and his people that are working with him. They have been harassing, following the deputies. It's not appropriate. The leaking of his personal medical MRI to these individuals who are discussing it publicly live on YouTube videos to get likes and hate messages and stuff out there is not appropriate. That is protected healthcare information for Deputy Watts that are required to be turned over. The discussions of his herniated discs, his physical therapy, all of the stuff that would be contained in his protected healthcare information should not be being leaked out to these media personas who are discussing it in detail, even going back to his records in Arizona and discussing whether or not he had medical things in Arizona is being discussed, or where he has previously lived, trying to obtain his medical history based on the information that they have gotten off of the discovery that's already been given. The
Wrong, Jill. We have nothing in discovery that has anything to do with medical. Jill. Again, lying, Jill. It all goes back to old Squishy Gardner's original video that he captured of your hearing, of the preliminary hearing. And you're questioning Amy and Richard Eric Watts. Amy Bliss, Richard Eric Watts. You're questioning and their testimony under oath, Jill. That's where we got the information of anything regards to medical and back injuries. Now, I did request KSC post public records of Richard Eric Watts and Amy Bliss's law enforcement background and previous employment in the state of Kansas. Whether or not they're certified, what training they went through, yeah, I requested that. It's all public record. It's not a crime. If it is, Jill, come arrest me. File charges, Jill. I dare you. Your problem, Jill, is you got busted and you're getting called out and it's getting exposed. That's your problem, Jill. That is your problem. And now that you did not release the records to the defense attorney like you were supposed to do, now this is all you're just using this to play into your own hands to cover your own big old fat ass. Now, in your future comments later, you're going to realize that you claim that I make money off of these videos. Jill, I make no money. I'll say what I want when I want, and I don't have to worry about being demonetized because I make no money and I don't want no money. That's why there's no link to give me money. I don't want your money. I'm doing this because you all screwed me over. The state has screwed me over, and now I'm protecting those who's getting screwed over too. I'm doing this on my own free time, on my own free will, and using my own money to do it. I don't need other people's money to sit here and call you out. But we'll get to that later. But another lie by Jill to cover her butt for her own mistakes and her own sheriff's deputies and departments' crimes that they committed against Robert Walker Jr. for violating his rights. It's disgusting, guys. This is disgusting. And the sad part, this is happening more and more and more across this country. It's even more sickening to me that it's happening in my own home state. And I'm fighting to correct it.
The leaking of this discovery has been egregious by the defendant. He has allowed this deputy's medical records to go onto live streams.
Now, Jill, what you just said, you were in your official capacity, your official duty, acting as a state representative and county employee of a county attorney elected official duty. And you just stated, it's right here documented in this court hearing, transcripts and all, that you seen a live stream with medical records being exposed and released to the public. So I'm here to challenge you, Jill, and I'll walk into any courtroom with my head held high that you're a liar. Because it didn't come from any of my live streams or my videos. It didn't come from Lawrence Accountability or Mike's, whatever you want to call him, videos or live streams. Jill, you're caught lying again. Let's continue.
that's not appropriate to the victim in this matter. Whether the victim is a law enforcement officer or not is immaterial to his privacy of his medical records, except for within the jury trial where they may have to be introduced into evidence. But pre-trial leaking of his personal information, including the things that would contain his personal identifiers, is not okay. And at this point, what I have in my possession needs to be looked at under a sealed camera. If it has to be given to an expert, an order protecting that has to be done. I talked with Mr. House and told him that I would be filing this motion because of everything that's been going on and the harassment and the more recent posts that have been going on. This stuff has amped up in the last 2 weeks with live streaming in the courthouse, harassment of witnesses and trying to intimidate people, including the state. No, that is not okay.
Look, I hate to keep interrupting, and I'll just say what I've always said and stood behind. You have the right to redress grievances with your government, for a fact. But I do not condone any threats of violence of any sort, period. I've always stated that, and I'm always going to stand behind that. You have every right under the First Amendment to redress grievances with your government. You want to call them, tell them they'll do a piss poor job? It's your right. But I do not endorse or support violence or threats of any kind. Never have, never will. On another note, Jill, the only reason you want these documents in courts and all the hushing up sealed is so no more of your lies gets out, Jill. Let's be honest. If your big old butt can be honest, let's be honest. You don't want no more of your lies and corruption and the BS that you're pushing through these court systems exposed? Let's be honest. That's the only reason why you want this sealed. And you want it squashed and quiet until after you get your conviction. Right? You got a reputation to uphold, don't you, Jill? But no, I don't condone violence. I don't support it, and nor will I ever. So if you want to call, you want to voice your opinion on how they're handling it, on how the rights are being violated, you have every right under the First Amendment to redress grievances. But you do not have the right to make threats or condone violence. And I will not support that
And
at all.
Mr. Watts,
Never
former
have,
Deputy Watts,
never will.
his healthcare information needs to be protected. If an expert wants to look at it, the expert could have it to look at under seal to not be disclosed further. But I do not believe this defendant needs to have it in his hands. And if Mr. House is given it, he should never disseminate it further to the defendant because of the actions of the defendant. He has created a new Facebook group within the last week and has been posting all kinds of slanderous stuff on there that is not true. And there needs to be a seal on any further record disclosure of Deputy Watts or Amy Bliss's medical information before it's turned over, because this has gone rampant and is not appropriate.
All right, Mr. Let me stop you there. Some medical information regarding the injuries to one or more of these alleged victims has already been provided to the defense, correct?
Yes.
Including some MRI results on Eric Watts, correct? Okay. What is still coming from California, which is relevant?
The consultation with the neurospinal expert that Mr. Watts had to go to in California, the order for his physical therapy he is having to do for the ruptured disc, the all of the information as to what the specialist out of California has said has to happen with former Deputy Watts from here into the future. So that information should be protected
All right. How
for,
long have you had it?
I got some of it a while back. I got some of it this last week because we had to end up actually having a second set of releases signed. Former Deputy Watts has signed several releases and sent them, requesting them. He's made several calls to California to try to get them. I finally had to also intervene and make requests from my offices with copies of the authorizations to get even more records. He's been willing to turn over anything in his possession from the beginning. And so that information has been available, but with the dissemination of his health care, the harassment he's been under, he doesn't feel safe releasing anything else to the defendant.
All right. So I trust that the records were released to Mr. House in documentary form, correct? On paper?
He has the MRI on paper. The report from the MRI on paper, the stuff that is out of California, he does not have yet.
Now, all right. I'm not talking about California. I'm talking about what Mr. House has already been provided.
Yes, it's been in paper.
All right. Mr. House, did you actually give that to your client?
The only thing I've given to my client is discovery that was provided to me by the county attorney. Videos of the incident that were taken, and I did give that to them to take it home and look at it. And the reason that we're asking for these records.
Okay.
Again, I really hate to keep jumping in here because I really want to get through all this. But I want to make this clear. Jill, you keep reiterating that we share, or Robert Walker Jr. shared with us. We had no contact with Robert Walker Jr. up to just, I think maybe 2 hours before this hearing here, which was at 1 p.m. today. 2 hours before 1 p.m. today, July 18th, this pretrial hearing. Robert Walker Jr. has not told me anything, haven't discussed anything with him, had no contact with him up to 2 hours before this hearing. Him or his attorney never had contact with his attorney. And they've shared no information with me. I will not reveal my sources, but it wasn't Robert Walker Jr. And there are no medical information and anything in the discovery that was released to me. None. I have zero papered documents of anything medical. All the medical information we got was from preliminary hearing from the old squishy video that he posted to YouTube. So if you got a problem, Jill, with the medical information that was released, number one, do not post it on YouTube and zoom it and video it on YouTube, period. Two, make sure someone like Old Squishy doesn't get it and rebroadcast it to give it to guys like me. That would be a big factor if you didn't want that information out. Jill. Other than that, I've had zero contact with Robert Walker Jr. I have zero documents of any medical records, any MRI. In fact, I didn't know anything about an MRI was being done, except for in the preliminary hearing where it was discussed from Watts' testimony that apparently he had some way back when. Other than that, we had no information on any MRI, nor do we have any documentations or statements of any MRI. Again, it's not Mr. House's problem. He didn't release it. It's not Robert Walker Jr.'s problem. He didn't release it. Your own witnesses released it in their testimony under the preliminary hearing. Jill. We have no documentation of it. It's just hearsay and statements. So if you have a problem with the information we have, stop doing Zoom and stop posting it on YouTube, Jill. Let's get back to it.
For these records.
Okay, wait a minute. One thing at a time. I'm wanting to know what you gave your client. Did you give him some of this alleged victim's medical records?
No.
No, I did not.
Then how did they get out into the public domain?
I have no idea, Judge.
They haven't.
So you're telling me, Mr. House, as an officer of the court, that you did not provide copies of these materials when you received them to anyone else, including your own client?
I provided my clients the videos that were given to me, and I provided them copies of pleadings. And
I'm narrowly focusing on medical records. I don't care about pleadings.
Okay.
I don't care about videos right now. What I'm concerned about is some private, HIPAA-protected medical records for an alleged victim in this case, which in this court's opinion should never be turned over to a criminal defendant.
I have not.
Counsel's entitled to see them. Counsel's entitled to discuss those with his client, and even under certain circumstances would be enabled to share them to let the client look at them, for example, in his office or conference room. But as far as ever giving him copies, that shouldn't happen. And I think that's well established. And quite frankly, Ms. Gillette would have been well within her rights to demand a protective order upon turning over those records signed by counsel that he will follow those rules. But Mr. House, you're giving me the impression that you never turned them over to Mr. Walker.
That's right.
Which again makes me wonder, why are they in the public domain? Who did turn them over then?
Or not.
I don't know. I haven't seen them.
Well, first of all, Mr. House, are you aware that these records are being discussed publicly on some sort of website or program?
Miss Gillette has informed me of the social media, so to speak, incidents recently, and I don't get involved in social media. I've told my clients that we're going to try our case in the court, not in the newspaper, not on social media, and I stand with that statement.
All right, guys, this is like an hour-long video. I'm going to break it up right here. I'm going to make it into two parts because there's a lot to be said on a lot of what comes out of Jill's fat mouth. I'm telling you right now, she's on my S list. Let me put it that way. And I'm being polite when I say S list. She is basically working on FAFO, if you know what I mean. Because I'm going to expose every bit of this. We've documented she's a liar. You could check my videos, all my previous videos. I never released any documents. I have zero documents of any medical records. I have nothing on any MRI or anything at all on Amy or Eric Watts. The only information I got is from the old squishy video that was originally posted of the preliminary hearing. And if you listen to that and watch the entire video of the preliminary hearing, Jill questioning Amy Bliss and Eric Watts and their testimony, Amy Bliss and Eric Watts' testimony, is where I got the information. So I'm going off of their testimony under oath, may I add, is the only information I'm going off of medical-wise. And I only exposed their testimony versus the video that you've seen. But Jill wants you to have you believe that we released medical documents. It's a violation of HIPAA. Jill, I cannot violate HIPAA. It's what I do with that information is what makes it a crime. But I have none to make a crime. Again, Judge, Your Honor, I'm willing to go on court, bring everything I've got. I'll expose Jill. I'll do it with a smile, and I'll do it proudly, Judge. So, Jill, when I said we're coming, we're coming. So you better quit your lying right here under oath under these judges while in your official capacity, because you're getting exposed, Jill. You're making a fool of yourself, Jill. It is an election year, Jill, as we're going to see in the next part. It is election year. You're right, and that's why you're covering your butt. So with that said, guys, watch my other videos. You'll see we expose no medical records. Myself, Mike with Lawrence Accountability, or the Rabble Rouser Justin, we exposed and released no medical records. Everything we released was off of the preliminary hearing that the old squishy Gardner guy released originally. Hey, if somebody's going to make a video public, we're going to take advantage of it. Until next time, guys, stay tuned for part 2. God bless. This is Richard with Kansas Freedom News, reporting truth of what's going on in not only this country, but in our state of Kansas. Till next time.